Hey Nerdarchy, Professor Bell, Comic Book University, and we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on over my channel. Basically, what kind of comic books that I'm reading and reviewing. So check this out. We're going to start off with Aquaman, issue number 30. Guys, every 2 weeks I come on here and I talk about how good Aquaman is. If you are not reading Aquaman, I'm telling you right now, you're missing out on so much, okay? As a fellow role player, let me tell you something. You want to get the politics down of an underwater kingdom, you could not do any better. I don't care what book you're reading, because I've read many of them also. I don't care what book you're reading right now. Right now, comic books, specifically Aquaman, that's the way to go. You're going to get the politics of all sorts of different factions, different quarters, different everything. It's amazing. It's immersive. Immerse yourself in water, get it? Anyway, seriously, it's really good stuff. May I make the personal recommendation? Jump on this comic book. Guys, Batman issue number 35. Now, to get out of the idea of politics and whatnot, well, underwater that is, I'm going to say that this comic book right here, Batman number 35, has got to be one of the most in-depth comic books. Maybe without even realizing that it is. Guys, Batman is a lunatic. Okay, he's a guy who's a regular human with no superpowers who puts on a bat costume and goes out and tries to scare people like he's freaking Dracula, okay? Let's just face facts. That's what Batman is. He's highly trained and all that good stuff, okay? But here's the deal with it. Why is he so broken? What does that mean for relationships with him? This issue right here is actually Catwoman, his fiance's, personal assessment of who he actually is. And she happens to do this in the middle of a sword fight with the mother of his child. Yeah, I know. Believe me, I thought about how crazy it is. But this is such an incredible comic book, and the amount of depth that goes into about his psyche and what it would take to love someone like him. Are comic books always this deep? Yeah, they are. Guys, also, The Batman Who Laughs. This is issue, well, it's a one-shot, basically. What if Batman had to kill the Riddler, but it turns out that the Riddler had a toxin, see all that toxic stuff that's inside of him, and he goes around making all these different poisons and whatnot. What if all those poisons actually got into his heart, so that when he died, a coronary would rupture, and he would breathe out, whoever was closest to him, would basically absorb the heritage that is the Joker, that pure insanity. What if Batman was the one who did it? Batman in this eventually becomes a Joker. So think about this now. The absolute paranoid lunacy of the Joker coupled with the genius and strategic mind of Batman. Crazy stuff. And this comic is better than it has any right to claim to be. It is such a good read. Just saying. Guys, Ben Reilly, The Scarlet Spider, issue number 10. You ever have a D&D campaign where you're dealing with death itself, the personification thereof? Ben Reilly, who is often considered the coolest of the clones of Peter Parker, Ben Reilly has actually, according to the Marvel standards, died more than any other character in the Marvel universe, and of course come back. It was a very complicated thing towards the clone saga. It's convoluted. But nonetheless, the idea is that he's back now. And hopefully he's back to stay, because if he dies one more time, he will not come back with a healed mind. He will have permanent scarring on his psyche. He could never be normal again. So he's really got to be careful about dying at this point. What's more, Death, the personification, has actually taken a liking to him. So she's kind of asking for a date at this point, but Death doesn't know how to ask. Death takes. Guys, moving on. The Runaways, issue number 3. Now, if you subscribe to Hulu, or if you don't, you should, because coming up this Friday is going to be The Runaways. It's going to be a binge-watching worthy Marvel TV series about these kids who discover that their parents aren't what they think they are, and they run away from home. It's in the title. And all sorts of crazy antics ensue. They come to find out that some of them actually have powers, and some of them have an inheritance from their family that is a little bit different than money. It is an amazing comic book from back in 2003, and it has been renewed over and over again because of the sheer love people have for it. The Runaways is going to be amazing. I am going to certainly be sitting down and doing reviews for every single one of the episodes because I am that amped for how good this series is promising to be. Guys, we also just had The Punisher, which just dropped recently. I sat up and I watched every single episode, and in between each episode, I did a 3 to 10 minute conversation piece about the characters involved and the storyline and the plot, all that good stuff, to give you a slightly better understanding. This particular episode, series, The Punisher, was a little bit more in detail, and it was more self-explanatory than some of the previous Marvel shows like Daredevil and Luke Cage and Iron Fist, Jessica Jones, but nonetheless, I do my best to explain certain things from a more militaristic aspect. On top of that, immediately after I went to see the Justice League, I did not have a very favorable review. Now, I did a spoiler-free and a spoiler review. There's 2 of them there. And let me tell you something. The amount of thumbs down I have, I know I made a real good impression. All right, guys, moving on. Let's talk about Thor and Hulk, Champions. Champions of the Universe. This is a comic book that only came out digitally. The trade paperback will come out soon, but I have links on the bottom of my reviews for these comic books, simply so you can go and find them a lot easier. And digital only, you got to read it on your computer or your app on your phone, whatever, but it's kind of worth it. It's kind of worth it. This is the original Hulk and the original Thor. See, they've changed now. We haven't seen them proper in the Marvel Universe for a couple of years now. So having this story with them back, very interesting. And they're dealing with a threat that seems to be more powerful than they're able to handle. This issue, the final issue in this 6-issue run, proves that that's not necessarily the case. And the way that they're able to come to these conclusions, because these are not considered to be the smartest students in the classroom, so to speak, until Banner shows up. It's amazing seeing the way that these two interact with each other, because everything has to do with the fisticuffs. But when they do come to a brilliant moment, it's great, and it's such great reading. Moving on, we got Darth Vader, issue number 8. If you haven't been reading the Darth Vader series, you're missing out on a lot that is behind the scenes in the Marvel Universe. It's owned by Marvel now, Disney, in the Star Wars universe. Things that are actually canonical at this point. Why are Sith lightsabers red? The answer is finally acknowledged in the comic books here. And this spreads over to the movies and everything. Now, with a new movie coming out next month, a new Star Wars film, it might be worthwhile to at least peruse a comic book or two. And if I may make a recommendation, the Darth Vader one is the best one so far. Guys, I also do a bunch of independent comics. One of them that is supposed to be finishing up, but they decided to continue it because it's so good. It's called Mech Warrior U. Every 4 years, several mechs come down and handpick pilots to operate them. Nobody knows where they come from. Nobody knows why they do these things. And the people who are operating the mechs aren't telling any answers. Well, this one kid winds up getting his hands on a mech, and it's not his fault, but it wasn't really meant for him. But this mech sees something in this kid, and it's just one of those really great hero's journey type stories. And I'm in love with this story. It's also by Greg Pak, the writer currently for Hulk. So it's an interesting aspect to see that transition. You can see some of the bits of that writing coming through, especially in the Hulk comic books right now. That would be issue 710. They're actually doing a Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome type thing, an alternate universe take on Planet Hulk. That might also be worth a read. And finally, Fence, issue number 1. If you know anything about fencing, yeah, it doesn't seem like it's the most interesting thing in the world if you don't, right? But inside the world of fencing, competitive fencing, I'm shocked at how good this comic was. This literally, well, figuratively at least, floored me. I was shocked at how good a comic could be about the inner workings and the inner goings-on of fencing. Competitively, hopefully moving towards the Olympics. This is an incredible comic book. absolutely shocked how good it is. Guys, on top of that, don't forget to check out my Explained in a Minute. You want to know anything about heroes or villains? Every Tuesday and Saturday, I put up an Explained in a Minute for a character. This week, I did Carolina Dean, one of the Runaways in question. Personally, my second favorite, but we'll get to all 6 of the Runaways, including Gert, who has her own pet velociraptor. Just saying, sounds like a familiar FASERIP game. And also, while we're on the subject, don't forget to check out my articles on the FASERIP games every Monday. That should be today if you're seeing this on the day it comes out. And on top of that, we also have at 8 o'clock New York, Toronto time, we have our FASERIP game, the Marvel FASERIP game that I run for Nerdarchy Dave and several other Nerdarchy affiliates. So, by all means, come and check us out. It's all good stuff. Guys, don't forget to check out my channel. Lots of good stuff over there, too. See what kind of comic books you're going to get. I recommend Aquaman. Just saying. Professor Bell, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.